No problem. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kushro and Kerwin. And I'm here with my buddy,
Kushro.
and I am Kerwin. And this is episode 83 being recorded on Monday, July 12th. So I hope everyone is doing well. Kushro, what's your background today?
Hold on. Before we address that, I think we should probably say something about the irregularity of uploads of episodes.
Oh,
But I will have to say that that is partly my fault because there's been a lot going on, and
no, it's all good.
I just haven't been able to get to it.
No, it's all good, Kushro. I think, people understand. These are very different times, and it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So,
All right. So what's your background today? What do you got behind you?
so in line with what we're going to talk about, I have the landing of the first flight of the 737 MAX 10, and in particular, a focus on the main landing gear of the aircraft. Even though you can't really see it, I'm in front of it, but this is the one of two unique features of this variant of the MAX from Boeing.
So will this will we not see holes in the bottom of the plane anymore?
No, we will see holes.
Oh, okay.
It's just in the struts.
Uh,
So it's just the engineering of the struts.
okay.
So yeah, we shouldn't see anything noticeably different, but there is.
Okay.
So
And the 10 is longer than the rest of them, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it's longer by, in fact, 1.7 meters or 66 inches.
Darn.
Enough for 12 passengers. So I doubt you'll be able to tell a difference, but maybe you will.
Yeah. So is it the same length as the 757-300?
No, not as yet. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. But is it longer than the 757-200?
You know what? That's a good question. I do not know that. And
Uh,
that was something I should have checked but forgot.
That's all good.
But no, should be very close though.
Should be very close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be very close.
Yeah.
But that's a good question.
They should have just designed a completely new plane, right?
Yes. Yes, but
I bet you they're like, well, they probably fired the lead engineer. So
ahead of ourselves.
yeah, but anyway, okay. So
We'll go over that.
Okay, good. And my background is a Singapore Airlines A380 that's taken off from London Heathrow on one of the runways, and I don't know which one it is, but it's the one that goes over Hatton Cross train station. And I was out there. I deliberately landed in Heathrow, went to Hatton Cross, got off, and just stood out there and just watched planes.
But you know, normally you see them landing. So this is unusual that they're using this runway for takeoffs.
Exactly. This is normally the landing runway. This is a runway that the Air Force One landed on.
27L, I believe it is. Oh no.
Is it
R?
I think this is
R. It's closest to Terminal 4.
Yeah, it's the one by God, I forget the name of the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where you can just go, you can hang out, and there's a big field, and people just hang out there. And no, it's not Hounslow. It's I'll try to remember it. But you just go, you hang out, and you can watch all the planes come in all day long. So they were doing takeoffs on this one. So this is the A380s, and we have a story in the A380, so that's why this is there. All right, so we have a bunch of stories.
Being symbolic today.
Yes, but before we begin, we were talking about because I saw there was a TikTok video which has now been removed, but they have a picture. They should show a picture of a lady. She's I think they've duct taped her into the flight attendant jump seat, it looks like, and I guess she was being verbally abusive, so she had duct tape around her mouth as well. And we were saying, and the reason why that happened was because
this was on a domestic US flight.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard about her, but avoid these stories because it just aggravates the heck out of me.
I know it was. I think she was trying to open the door on American. Is it American Airlines flights? I think it was.
Okay.
And this is not the, of course, this is not the first time, and it surely won't be the last time that happened because people just think they can behave badly everywhere. And so what we're talking about was what is it that gets people to this point? I mean, just let it be known that you're in a public space and you should behave yourself. And yeah, there's an
In a
expected,
confined public
yeah,
space.
and there's an expected behavior level that that you should do. But in saying that, we're trying to think of what is it that will cause somebody to get to this level. So normal person. And if you have a 6 a.m. flight and you're somewhere in South, let's say you have somewhere in South Miami, you have a 6 a.m. flight from Miami, and
Miami? Why on earth would you choose Miami? Anyway, go ahead.
well, because the story was about Americans. So.
Okay.
And I was figuring, if you have a 6 a.m. flight, we're figuring you have to be up at like 3 a.m. because you need to be at the airport. They're telling you 2 hours before. And so you want to be at the airport at 4, right? So you might even have to get up earlier because you may have kids to get together. You may have to get yourself together. You might have been out partying like the night before, being the humans that we are. And so now you get to the airport and you pull yourself together. You're up at 2 or 3 o'clock and you're at the airport. You park the car. It's taking you a long time to park the car. Or you've taken your Uber, whatever you've taken, you get to the airport and you arrive at 4 o'clock. Well, the counter doesn't open until 4:30. And so immediately you have something that pissed you off.
And whose fault is that?
Well, right. So as a traveler, you're supposed to know these things, right?
Or at least bother to check.
But most people don't, and they should.
And whose fault is that?
Well, it's the passenger, right? The passengers are supposed to figure it out.
Blame but themselves.
But what happens, though, Kushro, is that in the end, you get on the flight and something else happens and you go off the handle. And then it becomes the airline's problem, right? Because you're doing
yes.
So it's kind of like, I know people, we are responsible for actions, yes. But I don't know what the answer is, right? Because we can't control everyone. Because clearly, most people do what they're supposed to do. But the problem with the whole system is, so you had that first initial, we're not open until 4:30, you need to wait. So you're standing, you're like, damn, I could have done whatever else, which wouldn't have made a difference because then you would have been late and you would have been pissed off. So you're early and you have to wait. And now you're annoyed because you have to wait. Then you go to TSA and the line is super long. And so that takes you like maybe 30, 45 minutes because you didn't get TSA pre or you didn't get clear or whatever other cool thing you can get through because you don't want to pay for or you don't have the money to pay for it. Eventually you get on.
Wait, you can afford to fly, but you don't have money for...
Yeah, because everybody's buying these $29 fares. And that's what they think works because that's the environment that we live in, sadly. And when you look, I give people travel information all the time and they save a lot of money. And I ask them, I go, how much would you pay me for it? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, but I just saved you money. All the information that I'm talking about here is stuff that I would have told you to make your travel experience better, but you don't want to pay it because everybody wants something for free, right?
Free, yeah.
And
entitlement at its best.
It is, and it's sad, right? Because when you so you get to the gate, you get through TSA, and you're pissed off because the TSA guy didn't use a new glove when they body searched you, and the fact that you spoke to them about it. What's that?
That seems very, very specific.
Because this is what happens. This is what happens. They use the same glove, the same nasty glove that they just rummaged through somebody's bag with, and they don't want to change it unless you ask them. And so I've seen it happen, right? And so
remember, that's going into waste. That is going into landfill. That is not being decomposed.
Don't care because I don't want to get sick from all the crap that you took from somebody else's bags into mine. That's something that they need to figure out. They need to figure out How do you search my bag properly without introducing germs from another person? I don't know how to do that. The only way I know how to do it is with the gloves. Until we come up with a better gloves that will decay, that the TSA will be able to afford, because you know how these things work. So Secret Show, it's a compendium of things, right? It's not just one thing that causes
No, I'm
COVID.
sorry. I gave no leeway to the passenger.
Not giving a leeway, but I'm just saying that this is usually, these are the things that happen in the travel thing that causes people to go nuts.
Right. Well, deal with it.
Well,
Stop imposing your um, spoilt, entitled, selfish behavior on others.
agreed, right? But this is not what's happening. The reality is that you are, you get to the gate and it's delayed, and
Okay.
you bought the cheap
Can I,
ticket.
sorry to interrupt? Is there a point to this?
Yes, there's a point to it. I'm just trying. I'm trying to go
Because
through.
you're going to fill up my 1 hour allotted time frame with this
No, no, no,
rant.
no, no, no. I'm going through the thing because this is a travel experience that we have today, and especially now. And people think COVID is over, but it's not. And especially since we still have COVID, and a lot of Americans are traveling. And so, you know what's funny mentioning this? Um, one of my friends in South Africa, she put the UK just had the Euro Cup,
Yeah,
England versus Italy
Italy. Yeah,
in England
yesterday, last
at
night.
Wembley. And
Oh,
somebody
by the way,
goes,
today's the 12th of July.
yes. And somebody commented, "Oh, there's no mask in the stadium, not at all." And then she's in South Africa, right, where COVID is still an issue.
Yep.
And so, or still a big issue because the vaccination rates are very low because they don't have the vaccines. And when she said, "Well, how is this possible?" And somebody said, "Well, apparently," and I don't know how true this is, but that's what somebody said on the thing, that it was only vaccinated people are allowed in the stadium or something like that.
Like Wimbledon, I
Yeah.
believe.
And so um, you don't have to wear, I shouldn't say you don't need, but you don't
Yeah.
have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated. So says the CDC, but that's a whole other story. So what's happening with all that is that perception is weird, right? Because in her mind, well, this is all wrong. How could they do that? But she didn't know the whole rules of the thing. So it's kind of the thing where our world is so different, and my perception of normalcy is different from your perception. And so when these people get to the airports, they want to do what they want to do. You know, they don't want to wear masks. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. And they're told that you have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. And you get on the flight, you're sitting in these tight constraints, and then you have a delay. And you may have to go back to the gate because it might be a mechanical.
And how
Huh?
often does that realistically
Um,
happen?
but if it's my first time traveling, and I'm not accustomed to this, right? And I'm stupid, not stupid, but I don't understand how it works, and I never researched it. And now I get on the plane, and I'm like, I want to get off because I can't deal with this anymore. And I think that this is probably what happened with some of these people, because the regular travel don't normally do that because they know what to expect. But it's the person who's there traveling to see grandmother the first time, and they don't understand, they don't know. And you see this when we travel internationally, how different people travel worldwide. People come on and they don't even know how to find a seat number because they've never been on a plane before. So I don't know what it is, but we kind of, because this is getting pretty bad. I mean, every week you hear somebody trying to open the door on an airplane, which you can't really do, by the way. But so,
What happened to this person? Did they throw her off the plane and ban her for life?
I don't know. I assume that she was arrested on landing because she was pretty,
Good,
I assume that she was
good.
arrested and then they figured out from there. But the problem is that, and I think you and I might have had this conversation where you get banned from one airline, but you can still fly another one.
Yep, that's the
Right?
problem.
Yeah. So
People need to be severely penalized.
yeah. So I don't know. But you guys, what are your
We're
thoughts?
so afraid of offending anyone with the slightest sensitivity.
We are because we're in this weird thing where you can be an annoying person, you still get away with all the BS that you're trying to do, just in the name of trying not to upset the customers. And the customer is not always right. We know that.
Okay. And 15
Uh,
minutes later, the moral of the story is
get your act together. Get your act together. Get somebody who knows about travel before you travel and ask questions. Don't ask your friends online questions because those friends will tell you the wrong thing. I see it every day. So don't ask those people any questions. I know you're in the sharing economy. Oh, how was your hotel? How was your this? No, you need to go read the information for yourself. And if you don't understand it, ask somebody who's in charge, not somebody who think they know what you're talking about. So get a travel professional. All right. So now that I've ranted for about 20 minutes, you know what's funny, Kusho? So
uh-oh, are we off on another tangent?
no, sometimes when you say something, I don't hear you, but I actually think it gets recorded.
Oh.
And I've noticed that this started happening a few episodes ago, but it doesn't cut out. And I'll tell you again when it happens. All right, so we're going to talk about aircraft today. And since I ranted forever, this is probably all the time that we have in the episode. So there's a reason why we have all these planes behind us, right? Because Boeing's largest MAX variant, which Kusha is going to tell you which one that is, finally flies. And that's the picture, I guess, of the landing picture that Kusha has behind us.
Yes. So this
Carol.
happened on the 18th of June in Seattle.
Okay.
And this was the MAX 10. This was first rolled out in November 2019. And the first flight was expected in 2020 sometime. But with all the chaos surrounding the grounding and the crashes of the 737 MAX aircraft, this development of the MAX 10, which is the largest variant and hopefully the final variant of the 737 series, was pushed back until this year.
Okay.
And this aircraft is comparable to a 757-200.
Yeah.
And is a direct competitor, if you can even call it that, to the Airbus 321. So the one big difference between, well, actually two big differences between the MAX 10 and the other MAX variants is that this aircraft is very, very long. So it's almost the length of, as I was mentioning earlier, of a 757.
It's
So the center of
12 feet shorter.
12 feet shorter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's significantly less.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's long.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
long.
if you've seen a MAX 9, that's pretty long. And this MAX 10 is 66 inches or about 1.7 meters longer. So they had to adjust the center of gravity of the aircraft, and especially on rotation, because otherwise the rear fuselage would hit the runway on rotation, on takeoff. So what Boeing designed was a main landing gear, which is the one in the main fuselage of the aircraft, the rear ones, that when the wheels are lowered, they extend. So they make the plane taller on the ground. But the minute the plane lifts off the ground, they retract and still fit into the wheel fairings that Boeing had designed for the 737 under the wings. That's the one unique feature of this aircraft. So it's a little bit taller on the ground. And also they have an emergency exit door that is 4 inches wider, about 10 centimeters, so not much. But the fact that it holds 12 passengers more than a MAX 9 necessitated this requirement.
Right.
Because the maximum capacity on this aircraft is now 230 passengers. So this had a 2-hour and 37-minute test flight and landed at Boeing Field in the early afternoon. It's actually got a significant number of orders, and I think the biggest customer so far is United, but others are Vietjet, which is a low-cost carrier in Vietnam. There's Fly Dubai out of the UAE and Lion Air out of Indonesia. Those are the big customers. And it's scheduled to enter service in 2023.
So which was the
Now,
one? Didn't Ryanair get some of these?
no, this was the Max. They've called it the Max 8200. So that's the
Uh-huh.
Max 8 that is equipped with 200 seats, which
Oh,
is
oh,
about in the teens more than what a normal Max 8 has.
gotcha.
So um, Boeing has a backlog of all 737 Maxes of about 3,300 aircraft, and they've delivered about 490
Okay.
orders. The Airbus 321, for instance, is now more than 50% of all 320 series aircraft, which is the 19, 20, and 21. And they have a backlog of over 5,600. This is as of the end of May. And they've delivered about 1,800 of these planes. The 321 XLR, which is really a direct competitor of the MAX 10, has 426 orders from 22 customers and is completely outselling the Boeing product in comparison because the aircraft is just more capable than the Boeing equivalent. Remember, this is a 1960s vintage design. And the fact that Boeing has managed to extend the life of this aircraft for over 50 years is remarkable. But I mean, there's only so much you can do with the DNA, let's say, of an aircraft that's that old.
Yeah, and
But I just thought it was interesting because I'm sure we at United are going to be flying on this aircraft a lot. So, and it's a very efficient plane because the seat costs are pretty low because it's got uprated engines, efficient engines, and a high density of seating. So airlines want this.
And I assume they move all the fixes into place.
I would certainly hope so.
They're not going to charge extra for the. Sad. All right, cool. So when are we going to fly in one of these again?
I think after 2023.
Oh, okay. And hopefully it'll have something that the airline spotters can go, oh yeah, that's a Max 10. Because when you see an 8 and a 9, you can't really tell much difference.
You cannot. Well, except for that door right behind the wing.
Oh, the extra one on the 9 because of the exit requirements.
Yeah.
See, I know it's funny with that extra door. The 900.
Right, has it as well.
It has it, but it doesn't work.
Well, you're
It's
right.
just there.
I don't get the point of that. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't understand either. Like, so did you go, oh, we should have an exit, and then what might have happened? They might have gotten approved for the exit, and so they built them all with it, and they go, well, we don't need it anymore. They just never cut it out. I don't know.
Yeah, but that is a weird thing. Yeah, it looks like it's almost painted on, but that can't be right.
No, right. Yeah, no, it's definitely an exit. It's just not openable, whatever the word is. That's not a word, but.
And I don't think the infrastructure is there for there to be a door in that location, because I have been on them.
Yeah, they have to add more stuff in.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't understand it either.
But I'm sure and hope Boeing knows what it's doing.
Well, I think so. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about the next airplane because I have a question, but it's not about this.
Oh.
I'll throw it in. So a friend of mine's in a wheelchair, and every time he flies, his favorite airline breaks the wheelchair.
Uh-oh, that can't
Uh,
be good.
no. But the reasoning is it's a very heavy wheelchair,
Hmm.
and the airlines the they don't have a procedure to move a heavy wheelchair mechanically down to the ramp and back up into the airplane. So what they normally do is people lift it, and I've
Oh
worked on
boy.
the ramps,
Hmm.
and
That's
they're
hard.
heavy. Yes, you normally have to get like because first you have to disconnect the battery and take that out. So you can't,
Oh, you do?
yeah, because yeah,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
there's
You
a little
can't put it in.
stowage thing
Yeah.
for it. And so but then the intricacy of it is you have to get it out of the jetway,
Down the
down the
stairs.
steps, right, and down to the ramp, and then you got to get it, you got to lift it physically onto
Yeah.
the um, the moving thing that goes up into the plane, and then get it inside the plane, and then you have to strap it down and all that. So there just isn't a process that works for every wheelchair. The smaller ones that you can fold up and put in is fine, but the big ones that you can't, you have to physically do that.
Also, and those steps are not the most convenient to carry something down with.
Right, exactly. And I've had to do that myself, and it's not fun to do. And they're heavy. They're very heavy. Um,
So do they replace it for him every time? That doesn't seem right, though.
yeah, they fixed it. The last one, I think they took like 8 or 9 days. But the problem is that when they return it to him, it's broken, and there's nobody there. Um,
Do in the interim, though.
to say, well, I think they had it. It had a little, the last time he flew, the controller was broken.
Oh
And
boy,
so
that's really important.
yeah, and so he wasn't able to he has spina bifida, I think it is.
Okay.
And so he wasn't, without that controller, he basically can't control it, right? He can't do anything.
Hmm.
And they were able to fix it. I think they sent it out, or somebody came to his house and fixed it in like within 8 days or something like that. But the reason why this came up is that I told him, I said, because Branson did his flight yesterday
Hmm.
to space,
Right.
and um, and because of that, I think Branson was saying, if I can do it, anyone can. That expression that I really hate.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Not true.
it's like, yeah, I know you can, but you're a billionaire. And when you say jump, people go, how high would you like us to jump, sir?
Hmm.
Which is good because you've earned it, right?
Yep.
Um, but so the guy was saying, hey, if Branson can do that, the airlines can do it. And so what I told him, I said, look, what you should do is come up with a procedure as to how you think it should work. Because what he says is he wants to be able to sit in an airplane with his chair. And we know that today that's not possible on any airplane, because
We take up too much real estate.
it takes it, right, exactly. So what I said to him, I said, what you need to do is and this is what Branson did, right? When he talked about space, he said, look, I want to go to space. And he derived a method of going to space. And he worked with different manufacturers to make it happen. Of course, he has money, so that helped a bit. So what I told the guy, I said, look, what you need to do is come up with a procedure that you think would work. Like, how would you like it to work? So if you want to if you want to sit in your own wheelchair on an airplane, tell the airlines how you want this process to work. Then take that and go talk to the airline manufacturers, like the Boeings of the world, the Embraers, the Airbuses of the world.
How is someone with spina bifida? I mean, I agree with you, but how is someone logistically and realistically going to do that?
Oh, he's actually quite good. He has a huge blog. It's called
Okay.
Curbside with Corey,
Okay.
and his wheelchair is his mobility. So whenever it breaks, he
Yeah.
can't do anything.
Yep.
And he's actually very, very good, very inspiring. He writes his blog. I mean, he does all this stuff himself. His mom helps him quite a bit as well. But so it's kind of like, in order for this to change, I think he has to come up with a way how he wants it to be done, and then propose to the manufacturers and say, look, this is how I think it should be done. And they will come back and go, well, we can't really do that, but here's something that we can do to make this happen.
See, the thing is, the manufacturers would not have a problem with it because remember in the 70s and 80s, they had pianos and
Yeah.
bars on aircraft.
Uh-huh.
The airlines who want to fill every single square foot of the
Correct.
aircraft with seats because their revenue depends upon it.
Yes. And I
And to
hear you.
accommodate one passenger, plus you have to take into consideration the emergency equipment like the oxygen and this and the lights
Mhm.
and the TV and all that. So it's
But
not as simple like they have on public buses, though, where you just go and chain yourself up to
exactly.
a particular location.
And so, but you and I understand that, right? But as a passenger, he doesn't really, I don't think he understands that. And so, which is why I said, go talk to the airlines as well as the manufacturers and say, this is kind of what I want. And then they will tell you, they will say, look, we can't do it. Because you know, the whole thing about the oxygen thing, it's like when people get on planes and they have a baby and they go and they switch seat to another seat because it's empty. And it's like, well, there's not enough oxygen mask there for your baby. This is why we assigned you that seat. We didn't assign you the seat because we hated you. We assigned you that seat because that's the one that will protect you in case we crash and you need to get a mask for you and your kid. So people don't understand things and they think that the airlines are being weird,
Mean or deliberate.
mean whenever they do things because they don't understand how things work. Now, there are no planes out there that can take a wheelchair on board at the moment. Doesn't mean that they can't be, but there has to be changes made to it. And if changes are going to be made to it, there's structural changes that have to be made because you're going to have to figure out how do you keep that wheelchair from running away on takeoff and landing? You know, how do you
Yep.
make sure the seatbelt is down? You know, where do you put it? Because you can't, it has to be in the, near the door because that's the area that you have the most space because otherwise you have to make the aisles wider so the wheelchair can go down. So things like that. So what I told them, I said, dude, you need to come up with how you'd like it done. And because it's not just going to happen like that. You got to come up with how you want it done, approach the airlines and the airline manufacturers and the seat people, because the seat people will have an idea.
Yeah.
And then I think you can take it from there. So anyway, that was my thought on that. I
Okay.
just thought I'd bring that out because we're talking about airplanes and aircraft and stuff like that. And I really feel for him because I know him personally, and
Absolutely.
and yeah, I mean,
Yep.
it's annoying that every time he gets in a plane they break it. But and I know why it gets broken because there's just no, it's heavy
Yep.
and it's humans carrying it, and they'll slip and they'll
Mm.
slide and they're
If only there
tired.
was a way for it to, like be self-enclosed in a protective
Correct.
case or something.
And that was going to be my suggestion to him too. I said, what you need to do is, and I don't know if he does this already, is you need to create a case, a hard case that goes over the controllers. Like anything
Yeah.
that's breakable,
Yep.
when they take you out of that chair, you need to put something over that so it's protected. And that's
Hmm.
kind of an interim solution.
That's a particularly sensitive area.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because when the joystick breaks, and he showed the picture, and it's heartbreaking. You know, because
Yeah.
it's like saying, it's like breaking your leg. It's like I can't do anything now. You know, it's like what do I do, right? Unless I get fixed by somebody. So, all right. Boeing 777X is not yet ready for certification. Really? How is
So
that
this was a very disappointing story for me, at
Yes.
least, because the 777 is such an incredible aircraft, and you would think Boeing had learned its lesson from the Max, but apparently something slipped through the cracks again.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is a much delayed program. This is the 777X, which is the Dash 9 and the Dash 8, which are advanced versions of the 777 that Boeing has planned as successors to the current generation of 777 aircraft. Um, on May 13th, the FAA, which is the US Federal Aviation Agency, informed Boeing that it would not be giving the manufacturer what is called a type inspection authorization, which would essentially tell Boeing that it is about 75% of the way to being certified and necessary to move forward in the process of allowing this aircraft to enter commercial service. And the reason the FAA specified this problem is that they claim Boeing continues to pursue approval for proper fixes and certifications without meeting regulatory requirements. So, what the FAA, the US government, essentially is saying that Boeing has done incomplete design reviews and there is insufficient data. And the FAA wants more test flights. And one of the main reasons for this delay in certification was an incident in December 2020 when this aircraft was on a test flight and the nose of this plane, the in test flight, started moving up and down without any pilot input.
Hmm.
Long story short, the aircraft landed safely without any further incident, and Boeing believes it has solved the problem with a software fix.
Okay.
The FAA is stating that Boeing is having to do these software uploads repeatedly, and their regularity is continually slipping, and the government needs better visibility into the cause of these delays. Boeing, of course, has said that it, and this is a direct quote, remains focused on the safety as our highest priority throughout 777X development, which of course it has to say. So
Cut and paste.
now the aircraft is probably going to be certified at the very, very earliest in fourth quarter of 2023, or more likely in the first quarter of 2024. Now, remember, this is a plane that was designed in 2013 and was supposed to enter service in 2020.
Hmm.
But this is
Well,
another
lots
black
of things
eye to
happen
Boeing.
between
Yes,
the things that cause that.
yes. Because a
Um,
lot of the 777X resources were moved to the 737 MAX
on
after
both sides.
that debacle.
Yeah, on both the FAA side and
Yes.
the Boeing side, right? And
So now the FAA is extra cautious because they were blasted for their cozy relationship with Boeing during the 737 MAX
which
issue.
makes sense.
So this is very unfortunate because I think this is such an incredible aircraft. It's
Well, it is, but
777X.
if it's you know
Yep.
if it's what it takes to make sure it doesn't crash
Yep.
and kill people,
Absolutely.
do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now after the 737 and the 787, this is the third blow against Boeing.
But it's it's a day in the life of Boeing, right?
But it never used to be though, right? Never used to be.
You lay your bed, you sleep in it.
True. This is true.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but this is what happens when you have like an airplane that's built with components from all over the world.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do get parts from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And
Not as much on the 777 as
yeah,
they do on
yeah,
the 787.
but obviously there was something wrong when the plane was going yawing.
Yes. Yes.
So is it yaw? Yeah,
Yeah.
the other way. Yeah, no, yaw is this way. Yaw is left,
Was
right.
it?
Yeah,
Pitching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's going to happen, then obviously something is wrong, and clearly it needs to be fixed, and clearly they fixed it. And you know how these things are, right? The certification will probably change because somebody will go convince
Yeah.
somebody. Excuse me. We know how all that stuff works.
But
So hopefully it won't be delayed until then, but and they will
actually,
get back to you.
COVID might be helpful to Boeing and the airlines because the airlines are not exactly very keen on taking this aircraft
Yeah,
because VLAs, as this aircraft is classified as a very large aircraft, are not really in great demand right now,
yeah.
with business traffic being down so significantly.
So they'll get over it, and it'll be fine again. Um,
Yeah.
as you mentioned COVID. COVID has changed a lot of things, but we're back to being weird again. We're back to having dirty carts at the supermarket. And somebody sent a note the other day and said they were on a flight and it was dirty. So
But United, I can only speak for United. I think they're still doing the sanitizing
well,
before
they
each
should
flight.
still be. The airplane should still be clean, Kushro.
Yeah.
There was no excuse for not cleaning the plane. And I've been on many flights and on many airlines where the plane was dirty. And so, why are we having dirty planes again on some airlines? It's like, why? There's no reason for me to have a dirty plane at all, COVID or no COVID. So, they're cutting corners again, and I was very shocked to see it. And it wasn't a U.S. airline, and so I was like, really? Yeah, it was pretty sad that they had done that. Um, all right, A380. What's going on with that?
So I'm not a big fan of sustainable aviation fuel, even though it's much better than what we currently have from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But hydrogen is what I think would be the best alternative for jet kerosene. But again, I'm speaking from a very idealistic point of view. But it definitely is and remains a consideration for at least Airbus. I haven't heard too much of Boeing's hydrogen plans, but Airbus is going ahead with developmental plans for hydrogen fueled aircraft. And so, where does the A380 come into all of this? Hold on, give me a minute.
Okay.
So, um, the British Airways CEO, his name is Sean Doyle, has recently stated that SAFs or sustainable aviation fuels are currently the only reasonable solution to address emissions, carbon emissions, which is true. But the airline is also in a partnership to develop hydrogen powered aircraft. So, this is where hydrogen is used to combine with oxygen to produce water, essentially. Um, in June, Airbus announced that it had launched developmental centers in Bremen, in Germany, and Nantes, in France, to pursue development of zero emissions propulsion. And there are reports that there is already an engine that is capable of running on hydrogen. Um, both centers in France and Germany are supposed to be up and running by 2023 with the goal of building um, tanks for liquid hydrogen for use on board aircraft. And normally you would think, what's the big deal? But the problem is that the liquid hydrogen, it's a gas normally. It needs to be stored at about minus 250 degrees centigrade, which is extremely cold. So that's the big challenge for putting this on board aircraft. But Airbus has said that the first flight of liquid hydrogen tanks is in 2023, but has not revealed which aircraft is going to be used for this purpose. So there was a French publication called Les Echos. I've never heard of it. Um, they released a statement saying Airbus would utilize the 380, which is the double-decker four-engined aircraft. And
Mm-hmm.
then this was validated by a German publication called Aero Telegraph. Now, why the 380? Well, this is not really a surprise because for all engine development, engine manufacturers typically choose a four-engined current aircraft as their test bed because they strap this test engine on to one of the pylons. And in case something goes wrong, they still have three other engines to
Right.
rely on.
Yeah.
That's why you will never see a twin-engined aircraft be used as a test bed for a big commercial aircraft engine. So you would think Airbus has the 340 and the 380. So why not use the 340? Well, surprisingly, Airbus has only two four-engined aircraft available for testing. One is a 380 and the other one is a 340-300. That one is unavailable because it is currently being used as a test bed for something called Blade. Now, this was something I didn't really know about, but it was fascinating. It stands for Breakthrough Laminar Aircraft Demonstrator in Europe. Now, what is it? It's essentially the Airbus 340, but the wings outboard of the most outboard engine on both wings are substantially changed. So what Airbus is thinking is that if they can improve the laminar flow of air over and below the wings of an aircraft, they will increase fuel efficiency.
Mhm.
So what laminar flow is just the way particles flow above and below a wing of a plane. So what they are designing is essentially a morphing wing. So a wing that changes geometry during different stages of a flight to smoothen the flow of air particles around the wing to make the aircraft more aerodynamic and therefore more fuel efficient. So that
Excellent.
aircraft is unavailable. So the only other plane that is available to Airbus is the 380. Now, what I think GE and Rolls-Royce at least have done is that they've purchased old 747s for use as their testbed aircraft.
Right.
And that option is still available to Airbus. You know, they could get a 340, 300, or even a 600. I mean, it would look extremely odd if they got a 400, a 747. But
Very
so
odd.
by a process of elimination, they say the 380 is the logical choice, even though the 346 or the 343 is still a viable option.
Yeah, and they have a bunch of those sitting out in the desert.
Yes, they do.
Lufthansa, Iberia.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
So, yeah, I hope they can use the 380 for this because that would give the aircraft more life, I think.
Well, they certainly have lots of them to choose from.
I know, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So I just thought that was an interesting story.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good one.
Know what the energy consumption to making liquid hydrogen involves,
Yeah,
but
a lot
we're
of it
never going to win.
is PR, where you know the environmentalists are making a big stink about stuff, and so
Yeah,
the airlines and the manufacturers have to try to figure out ways to appease them. And so this like, oh, okay, we're testing this. We'll see how it goes. So, all right, cool. I did
so
have, that's the last aircraft story we have. And
yeah.
since it's
I've
probably,
actually been following the time this time, and we're at 45 minutes.
good man. So one of our readers sent a note about something that we were talking about in the last one.
Uh-huh.
This is episode 82.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we talked about um, dress codes.
Mm-hmm. Did we?
Yes, and United relaxing
Oh, yes,
the dress code for the
yeah,
flight attendants. So
yeah.
he says, nice to see you two back on the pod, even if it was actually a YouTube video and not a podcast that I consumed for the first time. So he's never seen us on video. So at least one person watched our video, Kusha.
Reassuring.
I know, very reassured. So he says, relaxed dress code slash tattoos, etc. He says, I hear you. But at the same time, it seems as 83%, his estimate, and he laughs, of people under the age of 30 are tattooed and pierced. If you want to recruit new workers to your workforce, you've got to be an attractive company to work for. If you limit the number of people sorry, willing to send your CV, you make it much harder to replace the younger ranks of your company. Outside of airline corporate America, slowly allowed casual Fridays, right? There are always missteps, but companies just list in their policies, these 5 things are not allowed rather than saying anything goes. As for customer pushback, for every Karen on board, there are going to be 10 younger, tattooed, bearded, woke passengers sitting alongside her. At least that would be the case for those who paid $150 for the round trip fare. Your point about trans employees is very interesting. What happens when a formerly male flight attendant dresses as a female flight attendant? So that that was his comment.
But that's the point of being trans, right?
Um, yeah, so he says, so you're saying what happens when a formerly male flight attendant dresses as a female flight attendant? Yeah, I think he's just saying, what will customer perception be? Which is something that you have to bear in mind. Um, I mean, I agree with allowing people to do what they need to do, but there's still some type of expectation from your customers. So maybe you have to prepare your customers for it, so that the employee isn't treated unfairly because your customer doesn't like this person or is not accustomed to is not accustomed
Hmm.
to this
But
person.
do you believe that 80% or close of people under 30 are tattooed?
No, he just made that up.
Okay. God, I hope not.
Made that up. No, I mean it'll be interesting to see what happens because I mean there's a lot of people that have inherent beliefs. So, it's the same thing with racism, right? There's a lot of people with inherent beliefs.
Yeah.
It takes time to
But beliefs regarding what, though?
um,
Tattoos?
yeah, there are people who don't like him. They're like,
Oh,
I don't like
absolutely.
tattoos, right? And I don't like this and I don't like that. And I don't want to be served by a transgendered person. So there are people who have these things out there. And so the thing is that how do you prepare your employee for this? And how do you prepare excuse me, your customers? And when someone is disrespectful, how do you deal with it? Right? So
But
that
would it be any different, a different kind of disrespect than what is currently going on? Even
um,
though this would be a lot more personal.
it would be a lot
That,
more personal, right?
yeah,
Because
and
you're
that would be
to the person.
hurtful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the lady that we talked about. Um, they duct taped her mouth shut and taped her in a chair. What do you do when I mean I guess it would be the same thing when somebody's like the lady who spat on the flight attendant.
Hmm.
So it's and I'm just glad I'm not the person doing this policy because
Yeah.
it's
I
it's
mean,
a
it's a tough situation, I think,
it is a
for
very tough
airlines.
situation. Yeah.
So,
Um, so
but
let's see. I think.
I feel that's a valid point, though.
Oh, it's a very valid point. Yeah. He says, a few years ago, I had a student who was trying to improve her English and become a flight attendant for another airline.
Hmm.
Around that time, there was an article that they discussed in class that talked about a Muslim flight attendant wanted to cover her hair, but that was against airline policy. Um, so there's a lot of these things that have
Hmm.
to be looked at. Um, and the same thing about serving alcohol. If your religion doesn't um, if your religion doesn't allow you to serve alcohol and you're a flight attendant in first class in an airline that serves alcohol, then how do you manage that?
Well, you don't join the airline to be a flight attendant.
Well, maybe just have somebody else serve the alcohol and you don't serve the alcohol.
No, see, that's carrying it too far. I think that's too much. I mean, you
But it's
have
your
to
religion.
take. I'm sorry, don't get me started on religion, please. Cause of most of the world's problems.
I pushed the Kushro button. So the thing about this podcast is that Kushro has some buttons and I have some buttons. And I've clearly gone too far. All right, Kushro, we won't go to the religion button. We'll leave the religion button as is. But this is what happens, right?
Yep.
And it's one of the things that
But you have a lot of airlines from Muslim countries who handle this just fine.
well, like Saudi doesn't serve alcohol.
Right?
Done.
Yeah, that's their policy. And if you don't like it, don't fly them.
Right. And I've flown them and it's great. They actually have different types of water. I didn't know there were different types of water. So it's again, it's managing customer expectations.
I mean, you have countries like Malaysia, which is predominantly Muslim, and they do just fine.
Right, they still
with
serve
Malaysian flight attendants.
Well, but it's just like how you have different within the religion, you have different levels of the religion, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's what it is. So if somebody is like highly religious and then there's half a religious, they'll serve the half a religious will serve the alcohol. But the highly religious who this is their upbringing, they're born into it, they've been taught that.
Don't join an airline.
Well, but you want to do that same opportunity. So it's tough, right? It's really
no,
tough.
I don't think it's that tough.
Yeah. Well, but what I think though is when you become, so let's say you're highly religious and you know that there's something that the airline does that you don't like, then this is something that you should talk about.
Exactly.
When you are becoming a flight attendant.
Exactly.
If it's something that the airlines won't budget, then you can't go any further.
Right. End of problem.
But then it doesn't mean that, but remember that the rule that the airline have is an older one that was developed when we weren't thinking the way we think today. And so how do you talk to the airline and say, look, the policy that you have is archaic and old, you need to adjust it. And so that's what usually happens, right? Whenever it's like when the first Black person went for their license, they didn't used to give out license for Black people to fly. And so if that Black person had said, well, that's the rule, I'm done, nobody would be flying. So sometimes you do have to push the boundary and said, well, I understand that that's the rule that you have, but can we talk about it? And so, I think this is where United is when they came up with these policy changes that they have. And it'll be interesting to see how.
I don't think they really had a choice, honestly.
Oh, you always have a choice. It's your company. You can do whatever you want.
In terms of relaxing these?
They had a choice. They had a choice. They didn't have to. They did.
You don't think they did?
No, because other airlines haven't changed. So they didn't have to.
Yeah, that's true.
They just decided that where this is something that they want to address, despite all the upheaval just going to come from it. And I know the other airlines are like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, let United be the guinea pig.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see how it goes. Because I think wasn't it United was the one that put the gender thing in the app in the.
We're going to talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't
United
know
and American
airlines have done that yet. So there's always one airline that's pushing the boundary. Sometimes it's Delta, sometimes it's United, sometimes it's American, and then the other airlines will follow suit.
Yep, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but
no, but it's just making us think differently, and it's opening up a lot of things, and there will be problems.
Yep.
And so that's why the airlines are sitting back and go, well, let's see how it goes, because they all have the same problems. Because people they're people of different religion, different sex, different everything works at all different airlines. Um,
Yep.
so anyway, but that's our comments. If you guys have comments, please feel free to send us a note and let us know your thoughts.
You're going to get messages. This was a very fact light episode.
I know that's okay, but we're here to talk about the issues. Everybody doesn't have to agree with what we say, and as long as you're respectful with your comments, then as we are with ours, then that's fine.
Have you ever gotten disrespectful comments from listeners?
Not about this show, but I've gotten disrespectful comments about other things. When people send me disrespectful comments, I just reply and say, thank you very much for your comment. I'm sorry we don't see things the same way. And I just move on. I've learned over time, you just don't argue with people.
No, there's no point.
There's no point. Once they have their idea, then you just
Yep.
move on. A guy had, when I wrote the thing about how my experiences when I'm traveling, as a Black guy traveling, someone wrote me a really nasty note, and they basically said I'm a part of the problem. And so I wrote back and I said, well, I'm just telling you about what happens when I travel. I don't go out there looking for things. I'm telling you, I told you about my good experiences, and I told you about my bad experiences, and I told you about the ones that I felt that they were racially motivated and the ones that are not. And then he wrote back and he said, I am so sorry. I did not mean to write that initial email. I was out of line.
Wow.
I was actually drunk when I did it. So you try not to, you realize that people just write what comes to their mind first. And
That was gracious of him to respond that way.
It was very gracious of him to respond. And so, and I thought that was interesting. When he wrote it initially, I was like, why is he being mean? I didn't do anything. I just told you what happened when I flew. But yeah. So oftentimes, So that's the end of this episode 83 on July 12th. And because we've gone on forever. It's Kushra, he's just talking. Just kidding. Thank you guys for listening. We are on Spotify. We are on iTunes. We are on Google and Amazon. We're basically everywhere you can get a podcast. And we are at passbrother.com/WHIT. And you can download the episode there and listen to it whenever you feel like, or you can watch us on YouTube. So that's it for episode 83. All right, we're out.
Thank you for listening.
And